Hello, and welcome to another episode of VMblog's ongoing coverage of the KubeCon and Cloud Native Con 2020 digital event. Today, we're excited to be speaking with Douglas Fallstrom, the SVP of Products from Hammerspace. Douglas, welcome.
Thank you, David and Brian. Appreciate the intro, and it's exciting to be here.
We're excited to have you. And can you start off things by just giving us a quick overview of the company?
Sure. So Hammerspace has been at it now for about 3 years. We've been shipping products for over 2 years. And what we do is really help get data away and untied from your infrastructure. We think of ourselves as storageless. So with the freedom from not being tied to a storage silo or actual infrastructure behind the scenes, you're now able to present your data both on-prem and as well as into the hybrid cloud without any advanced technologies. And that helps customers, especially for Kubernetes deployments, helps make their data portable and giving the data the flexibility that it needs to really evolve with Kubernetes and the deployments of persistent data over time.
Now, obviously, everybody has been dealing with this pandemic, and things have had a major shift in the way that we work, the way that we attend trade shows. How has your company been affected by this, and maybe how are your clients being affected by this?
It's a really good question, and it's varied. We have clients both in Europe and in the US primarily, and we've seen a little bit of difference, depending on where they are. Obviously, the travel restrictions have prevented a lot of in-person meetings because we did a lot of that. And I've seen clients struggle a bit with the remote worker scenario where they're challenged with remote. And what's been really interesting is our global file system has been able to help a few clients in thinking about things differently. How do you make the data available where the end user actually is, and what solutions do you now have? So we've seen clients having to pause, overall, and rethink their strategy on how they're going to support frankly, a long-term approach to a lot of work from home or not being able to be in the office economy. And we've seen a lot of large companies now shift to permanently work from home, which is fascinating. And, I think it's changing overall how people are able to think about where their data is. So we saw, practically from a sales perspective, it's a bit of a slowdown, but things have picked up now the last 3 months. That slowdown might have been this summer anyhow. So, it's exciting now to be towards the end of the year. Things are really, full throttle for us. KubeCon is coming up, and that's, to us, is very exciting with our Kubernetes focus. And, I think it's, and this virtual thing, I personally love it. I get to see more people now than I've ever seen before. Instead of maybe 2 meetings a day, I end up having 8 meetings a day. And, you meet new people more often. So it's actually not a bad thing at all.
And one of the things, we're looking at is that there's a huge growth in the cloud, the containers, and Kubernetes industry. Put you on the spot here and ask you to break out your crystal ball. What big thoughts or changes or directions do you see for the industry moving forward into 2021?
So we've seen 2 big trends here, in the last 6 months. I think they're relevant. One, we've seen a bigger push than ever on actually deploying Kubernetes in production. We've seen a lot of, people have said cloud first for a while, but in reality is no one has really done it. Or people have done it, they've been fewer rather than, the many. And we've seen that shift. I was just on a call with a customer this morning, and, for them to deploy anything on-prem means they have to put in this giant justification on why it doesn't work in the cloud. And it's very, very similar to, if you guys remember, VMware about 10, 15 years ago. There's the same shift in the industry where if you wanted to go, if you didn't do virtual, you have to have this huge justification. The same thing is happening for the cloud. And soon, I think you're going to see the same shift for Kubernetes. If you have to have a reason not to deploy it in this new infrastructure, because the infrastructure shift has so many benefits for the operational aspects of the companies. So I think that's probably my crystal ball for 2021. It's going to be more Kubernetes in production, more persistent data, and more important than ever, And I think the most important part is security across all of this. You know, we've seen more ransomware attacks in 2020 than ever before. You know, we have customers we're working with to protect their data from ransomware. And, you know, we're going to see a lot more about security, especially with the hybrid cloud becoming real, or the cloud, really, to be honest, for customers.
Why don't we jump back into your company, Hammerspace, and the technologies that you guys offer? What specific problems does your software solve?
So we're really focused on Kubernetes as a go-to-market. But what's been really interesting is that customers have come to us and asked, can we use this for other things as well? You know, so we're also often being pulled into generic file serving capabilities. You know, because we standardize on open protocols, open standards like, you know, NFS and SMB, you know, the CSI driver for Kubernetes with a simple integration for the Kubernetes infrastructure that allows us to provide data management that spans not just a Kubernetes silo. And that's really been our message. Our technology helps you pull the infrastructure out of your data and use your data to drive its needs. And, you know, so what that means is that if your data requires, let's say, high performance, the system will automatically detect what high performance storage you have in your environment and place it on those storage systems versus putting it on, let's say, slow spindles and so forth. You know, the advent of the hybrid cloud allowed us to think of things a little bit differently. You know, so the traditional storage vendors think, you know, here's my storage array, and now I'm running in the cloud. First of all, I have a problem because I'm not controlling the cloud. It's software only, right? It's by definition vendor agnostic to some extent. And, you know, so now I can't do what I need to do. So, you know, what we've been able to come in and say, you know, to the customers, like, your data needs to be in the cloud. You put a policy on your data to be in the cloud, and we take care of all the logistics behind it. So we take the infrastructure away. That means that the customer has a global file system now to play with that's active. So brand new, you know, literally completely innovative approach to managing data, where say, you know, we make your data available wherever it needs to be. The global file system presents the data in a file format that gets you into the pod granular, you know, the deployment granular method that you want to manage your data. At the same time, the file system abstracts the data away from infrastructure, so now you can run on, let's say, on-premise, you run on your top of the line existing NetApp or Isilon or your whatever your infrastructure you have. In the cloud, you run on EBS. For Amazon, you run on Google managed disks or Azure managed disks and so forth. And the customer is specifying that as part of their data, not as part of the, hey, go talk to a storage team and get me some storage. It's simply you carve out capacity from your persistent storage classes, and that's it. And we deal with the actual discrepancies between the locations. So it's a very different way of thinking about the problem versus the traditional storage vendor approach of everything fits in my little silo.
And as this market evolves and, you know, it expands, you know, one of the things I know, you know, people who, if they go to a trade show or they're looking stuff up online, part of the confusion is sometimes, you know, trying to find out how, you know, how one company's technology might be unique or differentiated. How do you answer that about what you guys offer?
Yeah, so the biggest, you know, when we look at, you know, as a product guy, I look at, hey, well, I built all these cool things and they gotta like you, right? But what I really measure our success with is how the customer reacts to it, right? And you know, so we might think that feature A is important, and the customer comes back saying, no, when I took feature C, D, and E together, it made me this thing that I couldn't possibly dream about before. And what people come back with and telling us important is, you know, the fact that we can get data very, very easily portable in a non-disruptive way. So they have flexibility to use whatever infrastructure they have to get the job done. You know, sometimes that sits on existing storage, sometimes it sits on new, sometimes it's something that they need to, you know, do differently. And the fact that they don't have to disrupt their applications and their Kubernetes teams, for example, to achieve this is massive. You know, so data portability and flexibility is really important. And then be able to handle the scale of Kubernetes. I mean, we were on the phone with another large financial customer the other day. They have some 30,000 you know, deployments. That's a lot. And I can't imagine, some of that is a thermal storage. I mean, it doesn't persistently store data from all of them to be open with everybody. But at the same time, they want to move to the scale where they can store data and not have to worry about these details. And, normal systems don't scale to that. It doesn't mean we scale better, but we're a scale out architecture that's able to leverage existing systems to just simply grow. And that separation of data away from metadata, effectively storage less in a way, right? I mean, that's the mantra we use to take ourselves to market with storage less, is something that helps customers scale. And that's really, and a scale in management, a scale in do more with less people, right? So you don't get 100 more people because you have 100 more containers. You have the same resources, even though your data is growing, to do more with less and be able to obviously deal with the performance aspects from an IO perspective.
And with KubeCon right around the corner, have you guys announced anything recently or any new product features or updates that you could talk about?
Sure. So we've done two things. We just released our 4.5 version, which is now available for on-prem, bare metal, and in cloud use. And that was a pretty big deal because we introduced new resiliency features. Our global namespace is available in the product. Our global file system technically is the feature name. Global namespace is the technology, how we achieve this. The GUI for it comes in 4.6, and that's when you're going to make a big splash out of it. And we're going to show that at KubeCon because it's literally around the corner for this quarter, and that's super exciting. So that means it will literally a single click, and I'll show you that later in this call on what it looks like. It's just very cool. The other piece we announced, maybe a month ago now, is free use of Hammerspace in the cloud and up to 10 terabytes. So we want to make sure that customers can very easily. And frankly, for Kubernetes, not all environments are very large. So we felt, we want to make Hammerspace available for everybody to get started without any worry about, hey, is there a license purchase? Is there, it's sometimes complicated enough for the small guy to get started. And so up to 10 terabytes for Hammerspace is free when you run in the cloud, any of the 3 major clouds. And, there's cloud cost to it because it runs in your infrastructure. But there's no license fee. All you need to do is email us, or submit your name on a form with including your email address, and we'll send you a license key. We made it really simple, and that way, customers they like Hammerspace, they want to try it out, they can do so. They're not constrained to a 30-day eval period. They can use it for their lifetime as long as they don't exceed 10 terabytes for any extended period of time. And if they need a license after that, it's a simple capacity-based licensing scheme. So you just ask for how much capacity you want, and that's it. So that's as simple as you can get pretty much with software today. The other piece that we'll see is really the global file system, and that's really where we start shining on showing the differentiation to the market, and we'll do that with us as part of a demo.
Yeah, that's great, and I think that's that's real generous of what you guys are offering. Obviously people can quickly and easily get in and use the product and try it out. But for now, is there a way you can give us a quick demo and let us, see what it looks like?
Absolutely. So, let me bring up, and I have a recording here to make sure that we don't get disrupted with any kind of, VPNs or network outages. And here we're looking at a recorded demo of our product. This particular setup is using Kubernetes as the workload. And we'll press play here and walk you through a couple of minutes of it. And what we have on one side is Postgres running on top of, in this case, an EMC infrastructure. And I'm inserting some transactions to show that Postgres is simply running. In our product, you get a dashboard of performance and telemetry automatically, and no agents installed anywhere. It's just part of the IO stream. We look at all the storage you have, as well as how the storage is aligning to what goes on in the environment. And typically, what you do is you look at storage systems. You can see here we have an Iceland storage systems. We have AWS added into the environment, as well as a white box, hyper-converged VMware virtual infrastructure. And as you can see from the list, we support quite a few storage systems in this list. And what we've done in this environment that we're going to do here is we're going to migrate data from an Isilon to a hyper-converged ESX infrastructure while the applications are running in Kubernetes. And in fact, the Kubernetes administrators are not impacted at all by this. They simply have carved out capacity from their storage classes that have placed the data on Hammerspace. And Hammerspace is now responsible for the placement of that data and the mobility of that data non-disruptively as it may be, as it is, you know, in the environment. So what we're going to do here is add, we've added a Isilon to it. We're going to decommission it. And what happens when you decommission the system is it's really straightforward. And I'll pause here for a second. Decommission operation kicks off a job, or a multi-threaded job in our case, to move all the data from the volume that is no longer in our configuration over to another volume. In this case, it's configured to move it to a DSX because that matches the criteria that the Isilon is having. And you know, that mobility of all those jobs is completely transparent. So when you move in and navigate into the share here, you'll see that the Isilon storage volumes, the alignment for those volumes go red, which means that they're incorrectly placed or in an undesirable location right now. And you know, the way the system does that is by essentially telling the system, you know, don't put it on Isilon, put it on the DSX, or put it, you know, in another location. And in this case, DSX is the matching location. And this is the hyperconverged VMware. And, you know, the benefit of that is that this data now ends up being local on the ESX host where the application is running. And you can see where I'm going with this. The data is going to be doing local I/O only and not be subject to any network latency. And so we're moving, you know, a few thousand files, and again, all happens online without any kind of disruption. So from a Kubernetes perspective, folks should be aware now that, for example, if you ran in Amazon and you wanted to migrate from one EBS to another, you would have to shut down your applications and do pretty complicated steps. And all of that is being transparent with Hammerspace and completely, literally single-click style operations. And now the data is aligned over to the Isilon cluster. So that's one side of it, and that makes that data migration really, really simple. And we're going to delete the volume, and now we're done. And you know, so you can do this for many reasons. Second, what we can offer here is data disaster recovery for your data. So what we're going to create here, and you know, in literally just a minute, is a global file system where you're sitting with one site in Utah and one site in AWS West 2, which for the AWS gurus out there is Oregon. And we're going to be taking that existing Postgres deployment and with a single click, making that available in AWS. And not only that, failing over from on-prem to the cloud, all within this demo. So we're simply going to go and show you here. This is the AWS site. It shows it's running on EBS with the DSX and the same AWS bucket. And what we're going to do on-prem here is to go to our global file system tab in our share creation dialog and simply add the AWS site to our file system. And we're doing this at the shared granular basis. And we're clicking global file system. We're going to click adding participant, and we're going to add the other site in here. And you know, this operation takes typically about 30 seconds, you know, give or take how much I talk in the video. So we're going to put the credentials in because it's the first time we're doing this for this particular site. Beyond this, there's a trust relationship set up because that's the default behavior. And now we're adding another participant to the site. And you know, as you can see here, it doesn't take long to not create not only a global file system for metadata, but also for data itself. And when we look on the other side here, if you look up in the right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see AWS West 2 as a site. You see all the data. It's not here yet, but the metadata is. So literally within 30 seconds, the metadata is up there. You know, metadata is small, which is why we have a global file system based on metadata. And then we ask the system to align the metadata into the bucket. I'm going to skip forward it just to keep the demo a little bit shorter. But just adding a location in the cloud for the bucket, and you're going to see me change in the objectives here. And by changing the objectives, we're telling the system to align the data not only locally in Utah, but also in the cloud. And you'll see the files go orange, and then now we have 2 locations for every piece of every file we have, which means that literally with a single click, a single objective, I've changed a local deployment into multi-site global file system deployment. And the best part for a Kubernetes person, I'll pause the demo here because we effectively have gotten to the end of the demo. But the best part of this for a Kubernetes administrator is that you simply specify these characteristics as part of the storage class, and Hammerspace deals with all the complexities of data replication and making sure that things are aligned across the board. And none of that needs to be handled at the application layer. It's all handled underneath the hood at the data layer. And now if I just summarize from a demo perspective, you can see here in Utah, we're going to stop the Kubernetes, the Postgres application. I have a little script that just stops the deployment count, setting it the replicas to 0. And then I'm going to bring up my AWS shell. I'm going to run the same thing. I'm going to set the replicas to 1. It's a very simple demo, hence this very simple approach. And that's starting up Postgres, and pretty much within seconds, because Postgres is quick, it prints the records that are now aligned into the cloud, and off you go. And then now it's running. And because it's active, I can do the same thing, but in the reverse order. There's no separate configuration needed to go back. So all I need to do from Kubernetes is stop my stuff running in the cloud and start it on-prem, and that's all I do. There's no complexities behind the scenes about data replication.
Well, great. Thanks for that great demo. Where can people go if they want to find out more information about Hammerspace and some of the stuff that we talked about today?
So all the stuff we talked about today is covered on hammerspace.com. And if you want the free license, which I highly encourage anybody to get because it's free forever with no ties to us, it's hammerspace.com/10-terabyte. And that gives you just name and email, and you get a free license.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to speak with VMblog today, and we wish you well.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, David. Appreciate
it.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more from our cloud technology partners, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you want to get notified next time we post a video, please hit the subscribe and the bell notification. Very important.